My name is Leo, and my world is made of sound. As an audio engineer, I mix and master tracks for a living, a job that demands a surgeon's precision and a monk's concentration. The problem is, I live in a world that never shuts up. My apartment building is a symphony of discord. The upstairs neighbors' lead-footed stomping, the baby wailing next door, the muffled bass from a party 2 floors down. Silence, for me, wasn't just a preference. It was a prerequisite for paying my rent. That's why I was practically giddy when I found them. Tucked away in the digital flea market of an obscure audiophile forum was a listing for a pair of Aura Quiet MK4 prototype headphones. The seller was cryptic, the account new, but the price was a steal. The description was simple. Unrivaled active noise cancellation creates a perfect audio vacuum. A perfect vacuum. It was the most beautiful phrase I'd ever read. When the plain brown box arrived, it felt heavier than it should. Inside, nestled in cheap foam, were the headphones. They were matte black, minimalist, with no branding, just a tiny, almost invisible model number etched into the aluminum band. They were cool to the touch and strangely dense. I put them on. The plush ear cups enveloped my ears, creating an immediate passive seal. Then, I flipped the switch, and the world ended. Not with a bang, but with a whoosh, a soft pressure change whoosh as the active noise cancellation kicked in. The hum of my refrigerator vanished. The distant traffic drone disappeared. The very air in my apartment seemed to die. It was absolute, perfect, a void so profound it felt like I was floating in deep space. I sat there for a full 10 minutes, basking in the glorious, unadulterated nothing. It was the best money I'd ever spent. For the first week, they were my salvation. I could work for hours, undisturbed, sinking into the intricate layers of a musical track. I'd wear them even when I wasn't working, just to read or think. The silence was addictive. The first time I heard something, I dismissed it. It was a whisper, so faint it was more a texture than a sound, like the brush of a spiderweb against my eardrum. Auditory pareidolia, I told myself. My brain, starved of input, was creating phantom noise. It happens. I took the headphones off. The world crashed back in, and I forgot about it. A few days later, it happened again. This time, it was clearer. A soft, sibilant fragment of a sentence. So cold, it seemed to say. I froze, my mouse hovering over a waveform on my screen. I held my breath, straining to hear it again. Nothing but the perfect, manufactured silence. I took the headphones off and on, tapped them, checked the connections. Nothing. It had to be my imagination. But the intrusions became more frequent, more insistent. They were always whispers, always fragmented. Snippets of conversation from a place I didn't know. A woman's voice, weary and thin. Can't find the light. A man's, raspy and low. The lock is rusted. They never overlapped, always appearing as lonely islands in the silent ocean of the aura quests. My work began to suffer. I'd be deep in a mix, trying to isolate a specific frequency, and a whisper would slice through the silence, making me jump. I started to dread putting them on, but I needed them to work. It was a vicious cycle. My rational mind was at war with my senses. These were noise-cancelling headphones. By definition, they couldn't be producing sound. Could they? I tried to record it. I ran a cable from the headphone jack directly into my professional audio interface, cranked the gain to maximum, and hit record. I put the headphones on and waited. Soon enough, the whispers came. A child this time, crying softly. "Mama, where are you?" It was heartbreaking. I listened for a full minute, my own heart pounding. Then I ripped the headphones off and played back the recording. Pure, dead silence. Not a hiss, not a pop, not a single digital artifact. According to my top-of-the-line equipment, the headphones were outputting nothing. The sounds were only for me. A cold dread, colder than any whisper, washed over me. This wasn't a technical fault. It was something else. I scrambled back to the forum where I'd bought them. The listing was gone. The seller's account? Deleted. I searched for Aura Quiet MK4 online. 0 results. It was as if the product and the person who sold it to me had never existed. The isolation I had craved was now my prison. Who could I tell? My magic headphones are letting me hear ghosts. They'd think I was having a psychotic break. Maybe I was. The nature of the sounds began to change. They were coalescing, forming a bleak auditory picture. I started to recognize the voices, the weary woman, the raspy man, the crying child. They seemed to be in the same place, a room. I could hear the subtle acoustics, the lack of echo suggesting a small, sparsely furnished space. I could hear the drip, drip, drip of water, the faint rustle of what sounded like straw or dry leaves. My fear slowly morphed into a morbid, obsessive curiosity. I stopped trying to work. Instead, I would sit in my chair for hours, the Aura Quest clamped to my head, a notepad in my lap. I became an ethnographer of this phantom place. I started mapping it, diagramming the sources of sound. The dripping was in the far left corner. The child's crying usually came from the center. The man's pacing, a soft, shuffling sound, moved from right to left. I was losing my grip. My apartment was a mess, takeout containers piling up. My clients were leaving angry voicemails. I didn't care. I was listening. I was the sole audience to a tragedy I couldn't understand. Then a new sound started. It was a scratch, a soft, rhythmic scourge, scourge, scourge. It was a focused, determined sound. It sounded like a fingernail dragging slowly, deliberately, across old, dry wood or stone. It was a sound of desperate, patient effort. And unlike the other sounds, which seemed to be ambient, this one felt directional. It felt close. The scratching grew louder over the next few days, more frantic. It was no longer patient. It was desperate. The whispers grew more agitated, swirling around the relentless sound. "He's trying to get through," the woman whimpered. "Make him stop," the man growled. The scratching was the focal point. It was the sound of something trying to break a barrier. The climax came on a Tuesday night. A thunderstorm was raging outside, a proper biblical downpour. Rain hammered against my windows and thunder shook the building's foundations. It was the perfect storm, a wall of natural noise that made the Aura Quests feel more necessary than ever. I put them on, and the violent symphony of the storm collapsed into that perfect, terrible silence. The soundscape on the other side was in chaos. The child was screaming now, not just crying. A raw, terrified shriek. The woman was sobbing uncontrollably. The man was shouting, his voice no longer a whisper, but a guttural roar that distorted at the edges. It's opening. The way is opening. And underneath it all, the scratching. It was deafening, frantic, a sound of splintering and cracking. It was so loud, so close, it felt like it was happening inside my own skull. I gripped the arms of my chair, my knuckles white, my body trembling. I was a spectator at the horrifying peak of a drama I couldn't see. "You," the man's voice roared, a sudden, shocking clarity cutting through the din. "You can hear us, listener." My blood ran cold. He was talking to me. "Show us the way out. You opened the door. Show us." I was about to tear the headphones from my head when a new voice spoke. It was unlike the others. It wasn't distressed or angry. It was calm, articulate, and impossibly ancient. It spoke with a chilling, serene authority that silenced the chaos instantly. "He cannot show you the way," the voice said, its tone like a glacier moving. "He is merely the anchor, but the thinning is almost complete." And then it addressed me directly. The voice was in my head, around me, everywhere. "Thank you for listening," it said. I screamed and ripped the headphones off, throwing them across the room. They hit the wall with a plastic crack and fell to the floor. The roar of the real-world thunderstorm filled my ears, a welcome, grounding violence. My heart was a jackhammer against my ribs. I was panting, drenched in a cold sweat. The silence from the headphones was gone, but the echo of that last voice lingered. "Thank you for listening." I sat there for a long time, shaking, as the storm outside began to subside. I stared at the broken headphones on the floor. It was over. It had to be over. The connection was broken. My breathing slowly returned to normal. The silence in my apartment began to settle back in as the rain softened to a drizzle, a post-storm quiet. That's when I heard it. It wasn't through the headphones. It was in the room with me. Scorch, scorch. It was faint, but it was unmistakably real. I froze, every muscle in my body locking up. My eyes darted around the room. The sound was coming from the corner. The same corner where I'd thrown the headphones. Scorch. I stared, unblinking. My gaze fell upon the wall, and I saw it. A thin, dark line in the white plaster. A hairline fracture that hadn't been there this morning. It started near the floor and snaked upward a few inches. And as I watched, a tiny flake of paint peeled away from the crack, falling silently to the floor. The scratching was coming from inside my wall. The headphones hadn't been a receiver. They were a tuner. They hadn't been picking up sounds from a distant, ethereal other side. They were designed to filter out the noise of this world so that I could hear what was trying to get through in my own. They had focused my perception on a weak point, a thinning right here in my apartment. The constant listening, the focused energy of my obsession. I hadn't just been a listener. I had been an anchor. I had been pulling them closer. I didn't sleep. The moment the sun rose, I grabbed a hammer from my toolbox. I walked over to the headphones, my hand shaking, and I smashed them. I hammered them again and again, reducing the sleek black plastic and sophisticated electronics into a jagged, unrecognizable pile of trash. With every strike, I felt a piece of the terror recede. When they were destroyed, I swept up the pieces and threw them in the dumpster outside. Then I went back to the wall. The scratching had stopped. The crack was still there, a dark little scar on my home. I bought spackle and putty knives and patched it that afternoon, covering the crack, painting over it, erasing it from view. I couldn't stay there. I broke my lease, packed my things, and moved out. I sold all my audio equipment. The thought of putting on another pair of headphones, of listening intently to anything, filled me with a primal fear. I couldn't stand silence anymore. I moved to a tiny apartment right in the heart of downtown, above a bar and across from a fire station. I surrounded myself with noise, sirens, music, shouting, traffic. It was the new lullaby that let me sleep. The chaos was my shield. It's been 6 months. I've been getting better. I have a mindless data entry job. The noise of the city is a constant, comforting roar. I was starting to believe I had imagined the whole thing. A stress-induced psychosis brought on by isolation. A weird, vivid nightmare. Last night, I was walking home from work. I took a different route, down a clean, polished street lined with high-end tech stores. And that's when I saw it. In the brightly lit window of a flagship electronics retailer, there was a massive display. Pedestals held up dozens of sleek, beautiful headphones for customers to try. On a giant screen behind them, a logo faded in, a simple, elegant A. And beneath it, the brand name, a URA. My heart stopped. My blood turned to ice. They were beautiful. The design was a refined commercial version of the prototype I had owned, but there was no mistaking them. All around the display, people were putting them on. A teenage boy, his eyes going wide with wonder. A businesswoman, a slow, serene smile spreading across her face as the noise of the store vanished for her. And beneath the glowing brand name on the screen, the new corporate slogan faded into view. It's not about cancelling the noise. It's about listening to what matters. I stood frozen on the sidewalk, watching as dozens of people willingly clamped the devices to their heads, seeking their own perfect, private silence. The store's automatic doors slid open as a customer walked out, and for a single, fleeting moment, a breath of sound escaped from the store's interior. It wasn't music. It wasn't an advertisement. It was a whisper, carried on the air, so faint that anyone else would have missed it. But I knew it. I knew that weary, feminine voice. So many doors. It sighed. So many new ears to listen. They hadn't just sold me a prototype. They had been conducting a successful field test. And now the product was ready for the world. I hope you enjoyed it. If you liked this video, please hit that like button and don't forget to subscribe for more content like this. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one.